And on today's show, what happens when you're suddenly single? Part 2 of this week's series on financial planning for women with registered investment advisor and certified financial planner, Heather Coulter. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to InsMark, LifeSpecs, and Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you so much.
Wow, day 2. If you're just coming into our show today, I really think you should go back out and watch our premise. Think about this. Women are the largest demographic and the most neglected demographic in all of financial planning. Even insurance professionals, really, we have not done a job here, but our culture has so changed and things have happened. We're really right now, we talked about this yesterday, the boomers, the baby boomer females. This is the first time we've had a whole class, a whole generation of women going to college.
Yes. Yes.
And now they're larger graduates. Females are more graduates in college than men.
Majority of them are,
Wow.
yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this. When we're suddenly single, I'm assuming that this is coming either by a divorce or by a death of a husband.
Correct.
These are this is trauma.
Yes, it's very
This is
traumatic. There's such a huge emotional side to this. So women have to find trust again, confidence again. Overnight, they could find themselves as head of the household. All of a sudden, they have to do everything their male counterpart did. When it comes to widows, sometimes 75% of them report losing friends because people didn't know what to say to them or thought that they needed some space. So there's just a lot to that. And then all of a sudden, the whole financial aspects of it. All of a sudden, they might have not had a lot of financial independence prior to the divorce or prior to losing their spouse. So this is just a huge transition for a lot of women in today's world.
Now, in your experience, and I'm thinking probably more of the baby boomer demographic for a moment, suddenly single, divorce, maybe they didn't see it coming.
Right.
A death, especially if it was on a protracted sickness, they didn't see it coming. All of a sudden, not only am I going through the trauma, but I know nothing about the finances of the home.
Absolutely. So now they need to have that financial awareness and independence. So now they might have inherited some debt they weren't even realized that they had, and they need to understand what assets they own, and it's very complicated.
How often do you come in and you look at all the assets inside the family and figure out what does the woman actually own herself?
Right, exactly.
And is that big? No, it's relatively small.
Yes, unfortunately. So I feel like a lot of women should have at least their own account or credit card if they are married. They need to keep that financial independence and be aware of what's going on jointly with the two.
Now, let's say that before we get suddenly single, let's just say we're going to sit down as a planner and talk to both husband and wife and make sure everybody knows what is owned by whom, where the accounts are, so it's fully disclosed, so both know what's going on.
Absolutely. That's so important.
So that if we suddenly single, at least we know we're halfway, or at least we got half the problem solved,
at least the
which
awareness.
is moving forward.
Right, the awareness of what you have.
Well, talk a little bit about gaining control of your life, because once if you're married and you're suddenly single by divorce, if you're married and you're suddenly single by the death of your spouse, there's a lot of aspects to go through here.
Right. Well, there's a lot of complications. It's very complicated. So if you're going through a divorce and you have children in the home especially, there's attorneys out there that will help you, but you need to have a financial advisor also on your side. I had a girlfriend of mine who went through a nasty divorce, and then unfortunately the ex-husband offered to pay her more monthly alimony and maintenance and then no child support. And she agreed to those terms, not understanding a year later when she went to file her tax return that alimony and maintenance was all taxable income to her. And it was a tax deduction for him. And child support would have been tax-free income to her. So you just need to always have, that second opinion, and you need someone to handhold a little bit these women that are going through this.
That single distinction you just made, how often do you see that?
Unfortunately, often. I mean, I guess they don't come to me all the time, but I do hear those stories too often. Well,
now when we're looking at trying to find somebody to help us, I probably don't want to have the financial advisor that my husband brought in.
Exactly, you need somebody
So I need
else.
a brand new person, right? Okay.
Yes.
So how do I gain trust? I'm suddenly single. I've always deferred to my husband on many of these things. Now, how do I move forward now as an independent woman?
Well, definitely you need to find somebody that will listen to you, that will get you, that won't talk down to you, that will understand your whole picture. And you can go out there and you can get a good referral from a friend or another trusted advisor.
Now, I'm looking at some of the things we talked about here. the difference between child support and alimony, which, by the way, that was a huge distinction, not only the tax deductibility of it, but the actual ordinary income tax that presents. But when we're looking at other issues, I've noticed that life insurance and who is the beneficiary is a very important issue.
Well,
so
absolutely. When
you're talking about that, give me a little bit about ownership and a little bit about beneficiary.
Right. Well, if you're in a divorce situation, you want to make sure that that ex-husband, especially if you are needing his income and child support to help survive your lifestyle, to help live your lifestyle, you need to make sure that there is a policy out on him that you own and that you are the beneficiary of, and it's on his life.
I'm wondering if before we even get to suddenly single, I'm wondering if we should have cross ownership. Husband should own the wife should own the husband.
Absolutely.
Inside,
oh, yes.
just for any eventualities.
Oh, absolutely, that should happen. I guess I'm more looking at the women's perspective of this, but it should be both ways.
Talk about Social Security, because this is a revelation to 90% of our advisors and all of the public. What happens? I'm suddenly single. It was divorce or survivorship. And I'm thinking, well, there goes my part of my retirement.
Right.
Talk a little bit about Social Security as it relates to the survivor or being suddenly single.
Sure, absolutely. If you were married 10 years in one day and you were divorced and you were not remarried at the time, you can file for your ex-husband's full retirement benefit.
Well, now what if I was married a couple times, 10 years in a day? Can I pick the one that pays the most?
Well, there's a whole analogy to that, and this is a very specific area, so I don't want to just give a black and white answer because everybody's very custom. But what happens to a lot of times, which makes sense a majority of the time, is you can go in and get the spousal benefit for that ex-husband and file for that and delay your own till age 70. If you have the credits.
And I think that's money that nobody knows about.
Right.
It's been on the table and nobody's picking it up.
Yes.
We come back from the break. We're going to talk more about being suddenly single with RIA and CFP Heather Coulter. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. We're with RIA and CFP Heather Coulter. Heather, we already talked about this, losing 75% of your friends. I mean, I don't think people want to desert you, but they all say, as you said in the first, they kind of want to give you your space, give a little grieving time, and sometimes they kind of forget to re-engage with you.
Right, exactly.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And then this other thing, they don't know really how to talk to you. They don't know, even close friends, they don't know if you're so wounded, do you want to talk about it or not?
Right.
And especially divorce, because that seems to be sometimes almost as traumatic as losing a spouse that you've been with for a long time.
They feel like they need to choose one or the other. Yep.
Yeah, and I hate that competition issue. All right, let's talk about this, but gaining control back of our lives, this is a big deal. I've gotten past my grieving experience, right? I'm a widow now. I'm now ready to re-engage. I need to get control and feel secure about my finances. I also want to feel confident about the person I'm going to have help me do this.
Absolutely.
And so think about this priority, because priorities, how do they change for a widow? I mean, they do change.
Well, absolutely. I mean, your perspective on life, I would think, would change completely. You need to find your mission. You need to make sure you don't make any rash decisions too soon, because you're going through so much at that time. But yeah, you need to find someone that can get you, that you can trust, that understands what you need.
Now, when I'm talking about some of the planning considerations when I'm entering into widowhood, I notice you're talking about inheriting spouse's assets. Most people think, hey, I'm in the state. Don't I get everything? Doesn't the marital deduction work for me and go? But it may not go through probate. There could be a lot of issues going on.
Oh, there's lots of issues. It can get very complicated. Yeah, sometimes you even discover things you weren't even aware of. There's decisions like the IRA rollover coming over. There's things, if there's a certain capacity or there's an estate tax issue going on there, they could always disclaim, which means maybe they want some more to go to the children. Maybe they want that to go directly to them.
So if I heard you just right, the woman could be the beneficiary, but the contingent beneficiary may be the children.
And they could disclaim your own, and it would pass to them.
And it would pass to them. Wow. So there's some play there, some tactical issues.
Sure, there's some planning strategies there.
What about different tax filing? Because I was having two.
Right. You were married filing jointly, and all of a sudden suddenly single, and that next year, all of a sudden you're either a head of household if you have children in the home or you're caring for someone. So that's a different tax rate. Or you're filing single. So now you need to plan for that. That's different.
Now, you could be moving into a brand new bracket, and I mean upwards. So your effective tax bracket could actually be increasing because you're only having one exemption now.
Right.
Now, when you see that, I mean, is there maneuvers that you can do to try to compensate for the loss of my standard deduction for my ex?
Yes, well, every individual's situation is completely different, and I would have to take a look at their whole picture.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Social Security now, this is the big, what I call the biggest stealth tax during retirement. We're sitting there with the client, she's suddenly a widow, and all of a sudden the benefits get taxed higher. They're still coming in, but there's only one person now.
Right.
So they're losing that exemption. All of a sudden they're in a higher tax bracket, this stealth tax. It's so hard to bring this to somebody. You just lost your husband, and now your Social Security is going to get taxed even higher.
Right, exactly. And you have to show them all that, and it's so unfair.
It seems unfair.
It seems unfair.
Yes. Now, and then when we're thinking about minor children, I'm thinking about, the children are going to have their own grieving time.
Yes.
Right? What happens then? You have children, whether divorced or widow.
Absolutely.
They have their own grieving time. They have their own issues that they have to take care of. And mom now has there's another.
Well, another layer to the whole thing. Absolutely. And kind of what I mentioned before was all of a sudden they become head of the household. They're forced to become that. They're forced to all of a sudden take on everything when it comes to the financial situation and the household and the children.
When you say no one size fits all planning, in your experience, you've been a CFP for almost 15, 20 years now?
Yeah, 15.
You've seen these scenarios before. When you look at this, because one size doesn't fit all, how individualistic have you seen your clients be that their stuff is they have to be so tailored and customized? There's no cookie cutter here. Is it that much? I mean, is that much customization going on?
Well, I wouldn't say it's that much customization, but it's definitely not a cookie cutter. I mean, every client that walks in the door has definitely something unique, whether it comes to the kids, the relationship with the kids, what happened, absolutely, the size of the assets. It's all different.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.